A fence post spears right through a young man's body.
Usually results in pretty immediate death.
Skin so fragile, it blisters at the gentlest touch.
So if you bang it, you rub it, friction, it shears right off.
A leg deliberately turned backward by a surgeon's skill.
This procedure is dramatic.
She had heart failure, renal failure, lung failure.
Deep in a coma, a mother must deliver her baby or die.
It doesn't look good for the mom.
And an incredible breakthrough. A cancer-ridden jaw is regrown with a miracle substance.
BMP2 gives us the ability to make bone where we want, when we want, in the quantity, volume, and shape that we want.
The most amazing species on the planet is human. Speared by a fence post.
A large wooden post came up through the rear wheel well of the car.
A nightmare late-night accident.
4-inch by 4-inch square post penetrated and impaled Ryan.
Could anyone survive an 8-inch hole right through the middle of their body?
He was in very bad shape when he came in.
A story to bring the chill of fear to any parent's heart. Ryan Lane was only 18. He'd just been to a movie with his buddies, and they were headed home. Young kids, late at night, an open road, a lethal cocktail, and an incredible tale of survival. The accident was freakish. The car spun 3 times, then hit a fence. A post speared through the floor, into Ryan's back, out through his abdomen, and then smashed into the dashboard. Ryan was skewered.
It's rare that we see patients with these kinds of injuries because most of these patients don't survive long enough to come to the hospital.
Ryan's life was on the line.
Usually results in pretty immediate death, and so the severity of this injury was unprecedented in my experience.
In the hospital, the emergency team worked feverishly to save him.
The lower 3 lumbar vertebrae were shattered and had been sheared one off of the other and displaced, and then the neurologic injury, which meant that some of the nerves coming out of the spinal canal in and around those vertebrae had been damaged or torn, and in some cases were just simply compressed by bone fragments.
And the fence post was still right through Ryan's shattered body. To begin treatment, it would have to be removed. Later, we'll find out how. Skin that breaks or shears off by itself. Hands that are fused into mittens. Even the inside of the mouth isn't safe from blistering. This is Epidermolysis bullosa, a genetic skin disorder that has doctors baffled for a cure. A mother's worst nightmare.
Well, the one thing I do remember is they went to hand me the baby like they normally do, and they grabbed her back from me and said, "No, no, don't touch her."
It was then that Cindy knew something was very wrong.
Christina's right knee down to her ankle had no skin that had developed at all, and then she had spontaneous blistering all over her body.
Epidermolysis bullosa, or EB, affects less than 1 in 600,000 babies. It's a genetic disorder that has to be passed on by both her parents. EB stops her skin cells sticking together.
So you have the skin sitting on the skin without the anchors holding it down, then it sort of makes sense that if you bang it, you rub it, move too quickly, friction, it shears right off the skin.
Christina's skin was extremely fragile. Every time she moved, more of it fell away.
Simply put, it's a problem where the skin, instead of staying on the body, breaks down.
That's the biggest one I've seen. There's one right here on this orange flower, honey. I don't know.
Christina survived, but she'll always have to handle life with kid gloves. Her skin is as delicate as the wings of a butterfly. The smallest bump can cause a massive trauma. The tiniest rub on the skin is an invitation to injury.
Even little things like tags in my clothes or something that rubs on my skin can cause a blister.
And if that isn't bad enough, the disorder has attacked Christina's hands and feet.
My fingers fused to my palm like a fist because of the scarring, and my toes did the same thing.
It can even attack the eyes.
I get corneal abrasions really easily because I have the same kind of skin on my eyes.
I'm sorry, sweetie.
The scars are relentless. That's what this deadly intruder does to your body.
The wounds are weeping. We use like a second skin product, and I put that over that first.
Christina's bandages are her body armor, keeping infection away and cushioning the bumps of everyday life.
It can be painful to change my bandages, especially putting the medicine on, and cleaning them in the shower hurts a lot.
It's an hour of agony, 2 hours when she has to shower.
I really didn't know the scope of the problem, and even when the doctor told me what she had, I honestly thought, oh, well, this will go away overnight, or they'll give me some creams and we'll be on our way.
Christina's mother, Cindy, couldn't have been further from the truth. This is a disease without cure.
Okay, now I'm going to do the ulcerated ones. You can't believe it because everyone seems to have healthy children. So what it does is it knocks you into a whole different world.
At birth, Christina wasn't given much chance.
At that time, they told me I'd be lucky if she lived for the next 2 years.
Kids with EB often struggle to make their teens, but Christina doesn't have to worry about that. Later, her story has one more surprise. Enter the world of the macabre.
Feels like my head is in a vice.
This is not a circus performance.
The way people deal with pain is very, very different.
A man who can tolerate exceptional pain.
It really comes down to mind over matter.
See, do you feel my skull? Do you feel the difference between...
Taking a body performance to the streets. Is it art or a human freak show? Bike courier, exhibitionist, live performer, Jerome Abramovich has always wanted to push the envelope. He's an artist, and he's certainly not mainstream.
I think that I'm a rather eccentric character. I like to do things to amuse myself, to amuse others.
Jerome's big love is street performance, and he wanted to develop that to show audiences just what the human body is capable of.
I thought it would be amusing to play around with injecting my forehead.
So he'd inject saline to enlarge it, and all for the sake of art.
If I have a larger cranium, I could play around with pretending I have a bigger brain and I could see into the future and I could read people's minds and all of that.
The act goes like this, and it's not easy. Jerome injects nearly a pint of saline solution into his forehead.
It feels like I have a massive headache.
It takes 4 hours, and it's very painful.
My skin is expanding, so if you think about, pulling your cheek as hard as you can, that sensation is what I feel as my forehead expands.
But Jerome is fascinated by how controlling the mind can control the human body.
Well, these people feel pain, but the unpleasantness that pain has is very, very diminished.
Our brain is the most amazing machine that we have, and if I tell myself I can tolerate this, then I will.
4 hours later, and this is the result. The saline has settled under his skin. Much like any injection, it will slowly be absorbed into the body, but that will take 12 to 14 hours. And now, it's on with the show.
Hey, what's up with your forehead?
What do you think?
I don't know.
Out in the streets, the crowds are gathering.
Are you really smart? I think I am.
But there's one final trick in store.
I'm about to do something that you guys probably don't even know what to expect. I'm the only person on the planet to do this. Take a good look.
It's very painful, and it calls for real mind over matter. Jerome has just made an inch-deep dent in his forehead. Amazingly, it'll stay there for hours. And Jerome says it's an incredible feeling.
Because it leads to an increased sensation, a pleasant, ecstatic sensation. I wouldn't say it's a pleasant sensation, but an ecstatic sensation.
In 24 hours, there'll be no trace that it ever happened.
How do you do that?
Oh my God.
Jerome claims he has no long-term effects from these performances. His forehead just returns to its normal shape as his body absorbs the saline. The crowd's been wowed, the show's over. By the next day, there's no trace that it ever happened.
So here we are, next day, about 18 hours later. There's absolutely no sign of what actually happened yesterday. Just shows how amazing our bodies really are.
And that's the miracle of the human body, the magic of healing, the magic of mind over matter. Christina Perez was born with Epidermolysis bullosa, a rare condition that means her skin is not anchored to her body.
So you have the skin sitting on the skin without the anchors holding it down. Then it sort of makes sense that if you bang it, you rub it, move too quickly, friction, it shears right off the skin.
Every day, her peeling, blistering body has to be dressed and protected.
It can be painful to change my bandages, especially putting the medicine on and cleaning them in the shower hurts a lot.
Few EB sufferers make it through their teens, but Christina isn't worried about that hurdle. Believe it or not, Christina just hit 21. She's been lucky. Most of her lesions have been on the outside of her body. Internally, they can be fatal. But she's tiny because her body needs all the nutrition it can get for other things.
All my nutrition that I take in goes to heal my wounds, so it makes me anemic, and it keeps me from growing and gaining weight as easy.
One of the hardest things with EB is saving the hands and feet. When the fingers or toes lose skin, the body treats the whole area.
And you end up getting an encasement of skin around all the fingers that sort of looks like a mitten.
But Christina's tough. She's a fighter, imprisoned in a tiny 50-pound body. Losing her fingers and her toes is just another setback she has to deal with. Incredibly, she sees that as just another challenge.
I really like dancing And I do take a class because I don't really want it to keep me from dancing, but I wish I could do it more or get better at it, but I get tired so easily.
Christina has determination that is unbelievable. Over the years, she has developed a great website and a connection with a lot of people.
Through this website, Christina's made friends with other EB sufferers around the world. Make no mistake, she's got grit, and that inspires others to give it their best shot.
It's easy to be thankful for my weakness, my sorrows.
And she's also written her own book of poetry.
My physical self has shaped my soul. This ball of energy will continue to glow.
But Christina's toughest times are when she thinks about her EB online friends.
I'm just frustrated that they passed away so young because some of them are only kids and not even teenagers yet.
For now, there may be no cure, but no one stopped trying.
We hope that in the future we'll have gene therapy to correct the problem with EB.
In the meantime, Christina's just getting on with her own life in the only way she knows.
Be thankful for your chance to be a part of this dance, a dance of souls here on earth, taking part in such beautiful growth.
I hope she's president. I don't think that there isn't anything she can't do.
Ryan Lane was only 18 when a night out with friends became a nightmare of pain. Spinning out of control, their car smashed into a fence. And then it happened. A 4-inch square fence post speared through the car, impaling Ryan.
He was in very bad shape when he came in.
The post passed right through his body, a shocking 1,000,000-to-1 injury, destroying 1 kidney and shattering 3 vertebrae.
It's rare that we see patients with these kinds of injuries because most of these patients don't survive long enough to come to the hospital.
In the ER, doctors faced a terrible task. Using a saw designed for construction work, they set about removing the post. Even if Ryan lived, he could easily be paralyzed. This was such an incredible injury, the surgical team filmed it themselves. They knew they'd never see anything like it again.
I'm sure if that board had traveled through him 1 inch to the left or to the right, we probably would have had a very different outcome.
It was incredible. The post had gone right through him.
Miraculously, this large board had not severed some of the most major blood vessels that travel through the abdomen and down into the lower legs. This, of course, would have ended his life if that had happened.
Amazing as it may seem, the only organ the post had taken out was 1 kidney. But his back was in big trouble.
3 of his lower lumbar vertebrae had been shattered and displaced. The nerves coming off of the spine in that area had been disrupted.
So Dr. George Fry's team set about putting Ryan back together.
Well, first off, with the mechanical injury, we had to stabilize the vertebrae by putting titanium pins and rods into each of the vertebrae, locking them in place and realigning them, and then also opening up the space for the nerves.
And all the while, Ryan couldn't be sure of the outcome.
Wondering if I'd ever walk again was hard to deal with. There was a very good chance I'd spend the rest of my life in a wheelchair. So getting used to that idea and what that would be like and everything was real hard.
Despite the uncertainty, Ryan's recovery has been miraculous. After many operations, he's doing a lot more than just walking. However, he can't do everything he once could.
My foot, this left foot, doesn't really do a whole lot. My right foot's fine, so I can drive, but this foot just kind of almost more just hangs off my leg.
But he's come a long way. And after what he's been through, it's no surprise that his priorities have changed.
It kind of shook me so much that I was like, okay, I need to really make the most of how many ever days I have.
I would describe him as a medical miracle, and I think he's aware of that fact, that he's been really given a second lease on life.
Allison Alfeld is 27. She's fit, outgoing, and sports crazy. Just another California girl. But she's also an extraordinary medical success story. Allison was born with a condition so rare that it has no standard treatment.
Oh, we were heartbroken and devastated. We just didn't know how we could help this child.
She had proximal femoral focal deficiency. Her femur, or thigh bone, was underdeveloped, leaving her right leg half the length of her left. Allison's parents faced an agonizing decision: have the leg amputated at the hip, or risk a radical medical procedure that might just change her life.
She could get around really fast, crawling, and she used her little foot to give her balance. So we saw her using that foot on different occasions. She actually would stand on it and give herself balance. We're going, we couldn't take that, we couldn't have that amputated.
So with her parents' support, Allison's doctors embarked on a salvage operation. Taking the working pieces of her leg, they fashioned a new limb.
My leg was never amputated. They had taken what was there. The femur didn't develop, so they had taken the leg that was there and the foot that was still there, and they rotated the foot around so that the ankle joint on the foot acts as a knee joint. So the Achilles tendon is actually my knee joint.
This procedure is dramatic. It's sort of thinking out of the box, if you will. It's trading what some people might view as a fairly significant cosmetic deformity for greatly improved function.
It's called the Van Ness procedure. In Allison's case, the growth plates above and below her knee were removed. The knee was then fused and rotated, so the foot faced backward.
Each were 3 major surgeries. It's in a full body cast from here all the way down.
As she grew, Allison needed a new prosthetic nearly every year. But right from the start, she was desperate to be just like the other kids. She wasn't going to let her disability get in the way.
She would take chances. I mean, the other kids were jumping off of a slide or a gym set or something. She'd get right up there and do the jump herself with the prosthesis on. I was worried she was going to break the leg that we were trying to change.
I'm sure I gave my parents a number of heart attacks growing up, and because I was so active and, sometimes I was a little unstable figuring out a new prosthetic, but that still wouldn't stop me.
And this is Allison's leg today. It looks different, but it works. And that's the great trade-off with the Van Ness procedure. What at first glance appears to be an accident of nature is actually a surgically sculpted masterpiece. It might seem strange to have the leg on backwards, but there are good reasons for it. Firstly, the ankle can control the prosthetic lower leg, just like a knee joint would. And the heel now plays a critical role.
The heel becomes the part of the prosthesis that bears weight. This is very critical because the heel has specialized skin that is very capable of weight bearing. We all walk on our heels. Allison's capacity with her Van Ness procedure and her birth defect is truly remarkable. I know of no other patient that does as much as she is able to do with that procedure.
The surgeries were definitely painful. I mean, it was major surgeries, operations, stitches, you know, all of that stuff. But it was worth it. I have more control of my prosthetic as opposed to if they were to amputate and then I would have to have, you know, a mechanical knee. Now my leg is in there, and the more leg you have in a prosthetic, obviously the more control you're going to have over it.
Today, Allison can enjoy an active life. Thanks to her parents' brave decision, she has a prosthetic leg that helps her keep up with all her friends.
We would have just been happy if she just would walk properly and be able to swim and do a few things, but she just went out and beyond all that.
And even in places where the prosthetic leg can't go, Allison still benefits from her procedure. Her medically manufactured leg is designed for strength, balance, and stability. Just perfect for surfing. The ultimate proof that Allison is now just another California girl.
In the next instant, you were surrounded by nothing but, you know, fire and you know, rubble and, you know, people that were, you know, blown to pieces, basically. And I immediately then started to see that the skin on my arms just seemed to be, it seemed to be bubbling.
Tracy Ball was caught up in a terrorist bombing in Bali in 2002. She suffered terrifying burns to 30% of her body. If she survived, her scars would be hideous and disfiguring.
It wasn't just my arms and my foot. It was obviously on my back as well, but I couldn't see my back. But I could tell in my dad's voice that it was pretty, you know, pretty horrible.
Tracy was going to need all the help she could get. Luckily, she found Dr. Fiona Wood from Australia, a world-renowned burn specialist, and someone who has pioneered a revolutionary treatment that dramatically reduces scarring.
Once you have that scar, it is there for life. And so our job is to actually optimize that scar so that having got a scar, we give you the best quality scar that we can.
The traditional treatment is skin grafting, but it has problems.
The problems associated with traditional split-thickness skin grafts is you have to harvest a similar area from a non-injured body site. So, for example, if you have a 20% body surface area burn, you have to find somewhere on the body that you can find an equivalent surface area.
So Dr. Wood has invented a miracle treatment for burns: spray-on skin. She takes a small section of skin cells from the patient and cultures them in the lab. They grow very quickly, and they can be sprayed straight onto the wounds.
If a burn wound takes 10 days to heal, it's got a 4% chance of a significant scar. If it takes 21 days, you're looking at a 78% chance of significant scar.
It's the speed of healing that makes all the difference to how bad the scars are.
So we're able to use this technology in large surface areas from day 5 onwards and really impact upon the quality of the scar that's worn for life.
And that's been the miracle for Tracy Ball. She has scars, that's unavoidable, but they're nowhere near as disfiguring as they could have been.
I look normal to most people, and I guess I can get around without too many people noticing my scars. So I'm very happy with them.
5-month pregnant woman is rushed to the hospital.
She didn't look like a patient that was going to survive.
She's losing her unborn baby.
And she wasn't able to get enough oxygen in her system.
And her own life is on the line.
But I would say it was 50-50 at this point of whether she was going to make it or not.
Mandy Thomas was living in Palmdale, California with her husband George and her 2-year-old son, George Jr. Mandy and George were expecting their second child. They already knew it was going to be a boy, and they knew what they'd call him, Charlie. Then, with less than 4 months to go, Mandy got sick. She couldn't breathe. And now her unborn baby was threatened. Mandy had acute respiratory distress syndrome, a deadly inflammation of the lungs. Doctors couldn't treat it aggressively. The drugs would kill her baby.
There were multiple times when we thought she wasn't going to make it. She had heart failure, renal failure, lung failure.
Things were grim. Her organs were shutting down. Mandy was on life support. She was put into an induced coma so her body would not fight the treatment.
You don't think it can get any worse, and every day it seemed to be getting worse.
Mandy was sliding towards death. Her respiratory system was closing down. It was a cruel situation. 2 lives were threatened. With the baby inside, Mandy was sure to die. But at 26 weeks, nobody could guarantee that Charlie would survive outside his mother. The medical team faced a terrible dilemma.
Do we go in and try to save the baby? Because it doesn't look good for the mom.
Mandy was in serious trouble.
To do a C-section, she was on a special blood thinner, and they couldn't guarantee that they would be able to stop the bleeding with her. So it was kind of a lose-lose situation there.
More than that, it was a father's worst nightmare. George had to make a decision: save his wife or his unborn son.
Pretty amazing. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. I hope nobody ever has to make that decision.
But then something extraordinary happened. Mother Nature stepped in and made the decision for George.
When I got the phone call from the doctor saying that Mandy was in labor, I really thought she had the wrong number, because Mandy was in a coma. I was sitting on the phone, well, how's this possible?
The medical team were in unknown territory. With Mandy deep in an induced coma, was a natural birth even possible?
I've been delivering babies for probably 30 years. I've never delivered a mother in a coma.
I've been doing this all my life, and I've probably done 30,000 deliveries. I've never even heard of it.
But there was no choice. Mandy's labor had begun. There was no turning back.
It was amazing because she was laying there in the coma, and one of the nurses was actually standing up on a stool, pushing on her stomach, giving her pressure.
As George watched, he knew that he could lose his wife, his son, or both. A coma birth was a first for the medical team, and nobody could predict the outcome. But miraculously, tiny Charlie arrived safely. And as Mandy remained unaware of his birth, her new son's fight for life began. Because he was so premature, Charlie weighed just 1 pound, 10 ounces. He could fit into the palm of your hand.
When I first saw Charlie, I was hoping he would survive. I didn't think he was gonna at first because he was just so small.
But somehow, Charlie won the battle.
Eventually, to be able to see Charlie, who survives all of this insult, is amazing. It's what nurses live for.
Mandy was still in a coma, but giving birth to Charlie had removed a lot of stress from her body. Her immune system began to fight back.
As soon as she delivered the baby, her body seemed to slowly start to come back.
4 weeks later, Mandy finally emerged from her coma, not knowing how her life had changed.
I opened my eyes and saw George and my dad, and I pointed to my stomach, and they said the baby was fine. I still thought I was pregnant. I had not realized all the stuff that had gone on.
What had looked like a family tragedy had finally turned into an incredible medical rescue. Against all odds, 2 lives saved and a family given another chance.
You know, hospitals are funny places, and you get to see miracles every day, but they're little. This is a huge one, so it's pretty special.
Imagine every single step is excruciating agony.
It was bone on bone. The bone had become necrotic, which is dead bone.
Surgery is your only chance at a life without pain.
Because I had come to the end of the road.
4 months ago, Candace Mayo could barely walk without extreme pain. Her right ankle was destroyed by arthritis.
I tried acupuncture, I tried self-hypnosis. I really had tried everything.
To walk properly, she needed a new ankle joint. Some people can get an artificial joint, like this one, but Candace couldn't have one. She has osteoporosis, a common disease that weakens the bones. Her bones weren't strong enough to support a metal joint. Her chance of a normal life seemed impossible. But lucky for Candace, Baltimore orthopedic surgeon Dr. Mark Meyerson had the answer. A new procedure that could solve her problem.
I really had tried everything. And when I came to Dr. Meyerson, he gave me that thing called hope.
Dr. Meyerson was treating ankle replacements like organ transplants, using ankle bones and cartilage from cadavers.
Taking bone or tissue from a cadaver is not new, but taking an entire ankle and putting a cadaver ankle in to replace this entire ankle, that is a new concept.
Since I am an organ donor myself, I was a bit, it's very difficult to be on one side and then be on the other.
But finding a compatible donor is not easy, as donors for this procedure are extremely rare. Candace would have an agonizing wait.
It's not often that a patient is comfortable with the concept of taking a piece of a cadaver and putting it in his or her ankle.
And Candace was no exception.
I was not so much concentrating on the dead bone itself, but the person that died and the family and the grief that they must be feeling.
This new procedure is called an ankle allograft replacement, and it has a high failure rate. The cadaver ankle bones can become infected or just don't take to the recipient.
If you look at failure, we have an awfully high failure rate at 40%.
This operation has only a small chance of success, and it's not reversible. If it goes well, Candace could be back on her feet in a few months. If not, her future is unclear.
That's where I'll put it in right there, over here, and then I'll work behind it with something else. I think that's the best way to do it.
This is not an operation for the faint-hearted. Dr. Meyerson has to break the old ankle away from her leg and foot, and then attempt to graft a new one in.
Essentially, what I'm going to do is to cut out this entire section of the ankle here with a saw, and I'll remove a whole block of the ankle and then take a similarly shaped piece of the ankle from a cadaver and implant it into the patient.
To be successful, the graft has to survive, and this depends on how fresh it is.
The older the graft, the less likely you have viable living cells.
There was no turning back now. For Candace, it was all or nothing.
Who said orthopedics was easy? This is the bone graft here that was taken from a cadaver and then put into the ankle. It's this whole segment here that was transplanted into her ankle.
But there's still no guarantee Candace's body would bring life to the dead bones.
Look, after all, you're taking a big piece of dead bone and cartilage. The cartilage cells at the microscopic level are alive, but the bone is dead. And you're putting it into an ankle and hoping that you get blood creeping in there so that you have bone healing occurring.
But over a period of months, blood began to flow. It looked like there was life. Candace's painful wait could well be over.
Initially, it was very painful. I'm not going to lie, it was very painful, and being shut in the house was difficult because I'm a goer. And since it's my right ankle, I could not drive.
You can see here the before shot where there's just awful arthritis all the way around here, and now we have a very clean, healthy joint replacing that arthritic cartilage. Are you exercising?
Exercising, walking, the whole bit, up and down the steps.
Let me see you do that.
Okay.
Can you walk for me?
Sure.
Come on down here.
Candace was certainly one of the lucky ones. Just 4 months ago, she could hardly walk.
That's fantastic.
Now she's unstoppable.
That's marvelous. Come on back.
This is one of the most fabulous things, to be able to walk
Excellent.
without pain.
Can you go on tiptoes?
Thanks to the skillful surgeon and Candace's bravery, others can now follow in her footsteps.
Up and down. That is tremendous. Good for you. Good. Come, let's go in over here.
You have done such a good job.
Thank you. I'm very happy. Come on, let's go
So
here.
am I. As I said, he has magic. He's magic in his fingers.
It's very exciting to see something that is being done that's different, that's new, that is successful, and you have a happy patient. Nothing is more gratifying.
And I'm going Christmas shopping this year all by myself. With lots of packages.
A 9-year-old boy needs face-saving surgery.
It's almost like overnight it just got huge.
A rare tumor threatens to tear his jaw apart.
It certainly was crossing the midline and showed no signs of stopping.
Only a miracle, untried treatment can save him.
He had more than half of his jaw destroyed by the tumor.
Justin Moore was a normal, healthy kid. Then 2 years ago, he noticed he had a lump on his jaw. It wasn't pretty, and it was getting worse. It worried his folks.
It freaked me out kind of because I looked at it like, you know, this ain't normal.
It looked bad, and the kids at school were tormenting him.
And to see him sad and stuff because he's, you know, kids, they say he's disfigured and everything, you know. Kids can be mean.
Something was badly wrong. The doctors took a CAT scan, and the news wasn't good. Justin had a bone tumor. His jawbone was cancerous, and it was growing relentlessly.
Earlier in his life it recurred, so we realized that this needed to come out.
Dr. Karsten's surgical team made a 3D model of Justin's jaw. It was a guide to how much they had to cut out and then rebuild.
What are the Bovie settings?
Justin went under the knife. With a tumor this size, it was going to be a drastic operation.
God, I really wish I could not have to go this far. I don't know how well we can get away with that.
When the surgical team went in, they knew they'd have to cut out the whole right half of Justin's jaw. It was a massive job.
We needed to resect to cut out his jaw from here to here.
The operation took over 5 hours. That got rid of the cancerous growth, they hoped.
Table down some.
But now they had to rebuild the jaw. And with such a large piece missing, a traditional bone graft would not work.
If you take a bone graft bigger than 2 centimeters and put it in a new location, a good portion of the graft may die.
Then Dr. Carstens performed a masterstroke. What he did had never been tried before. He was attempting the impossible, to regrow Justin's missing jawbone with a revolutionary new product.
We placed a collagen sponge that was soaked with a substance called recombinant human bone morphogenetic protein. Now that's a mouthful, so we say it RHBMP2 or BMP2 for short.
BMP2 is a synthetic substance which reacts with cells to grow new bone. So Dr. Carstens built a framework for the new jaw. Then he placed BMP2 on top of it. If it worked, it could transform treatment of bone fractures forever. This was a groundbreaking operation, and it wasn't going to be easy.
I was shaking like a leaf, but just knowing that the doctors was there kind of gave me a little bit of security.
Dr. Carstens had put BMP2 in place, but would it grow new bone? If it didn't, Justin would be left without half his jaw. As they finished the last of hundreds of sutures in Justin's jaw, Dr. Carstens knew he had just one shot to pull this off.
Yeah, I was thinking that this, we want height here. We really don't care about back here because...
As it turned out, they didn't have long to wait. Dr. Carstens' brilliant gamble had paid off. The new bones started to grow.
And with each successive CAT scan, and he's had several, we can see that the bone has become more and more mature.
But they weren't out of the woods yet. Justin had lost most of his teeth. He'll need at least 2 more operations before it's all over. The last one will be when he's finished growing, probably in his late teens. In the meantime, Dr. Carstens had some adjustments to make, so Justin had to go under the knife again.
If I hold this tractor in my hands and begin to screw, it will open up. Every 2 revolutions is a millimeter.
This is an expander to make the jaw bigger. This growth device will stay in Justin's mouth for a short time. It'll encourage more bone growth until his jaw is the right size. Adjusting it each day is Dad's job.
Okay, we'll give it probably two revolutions a day. That would be about a millimeter. And then in 2 weeks, we'll have, let's see, it's 15 millimeters. So about, that's 2 weeks. So in 2 weeks, it'll be complete.
All this is leading up to the day Justin's been looking forward to most.
The thing I'm looking forward to is a nice big smile.
In about 6 months, stand by for a flash of pearly whites.
This surgery is just revolutionary. We have saved this child a significant permanent defect, but more importantly, BMP2 gives us the ability to make bone where we want, when we want, in the quantity, volume, and shape that we want. And this will have worldwide implications for surgery.